Number 4. This guy is so underrated when it comes to villains in Bond films. Gottfried John is amazing in this role. I'd say that Orumov is one of the most underrated characters in all of Bond, probably the most underrated character in the Bond franchise. He's really quite an interesting character, and I'm surprised he's not remembered more fondly by fans. But then I guess GoldenEye is a film full of great villains.
Trevelyan, Xenia, Boris and Orumov are some of the best villains in this series, in my opinion, and I think it's a real shame that they make such a fabulous ensemble, but it's a shame that no scene exists of all four of them together, which is such a shame, because could you imagine, just put all those four people in a room with Bond, and you would have probably the best scene in any Bond film ever. But anyway, I'm getting off point here.
Orumov is a villain kind of working for his own personal gain rather than Trevelyan's main goal, which is something I like. He's not so single-minded. I think what I love most of all about the character is quite simply his face. He has just a great, villainous, expressive, unusual face, and it reads so well on film. Every little mannerism and twitch is captured so wonderfully. I don't think I've ever seen Gottfried John in anything else, so I don't know what he's like usually, but in GoldenEye, he completely blew me away. Just an absolutely fantastic character. Number 3.
Along with Oddjob, this must be another one of those henchmen that features on almost every single Bond fan's best henchman list.
Jaws was such a popular character in his day that he actually got brought back for the next film in the series, something almost totally unheard of in the Bond franchise, unless you count that gangster guy who was in Diamonds Are Forever and the Man with the Golden Gun, but who does? Jaws is physically imposing, holds a memorable physical trait in his teeth, is menacing and yet comical at times. He's an all-round fabulous package. He's also a henchman that shadows the main villains in the film he's in. When you see Bond villains parodied in other media, I'd say the ones that receive the most direct parody are Blofeld, Oddjob and Jaws, which really counts for something. It's not often you see Stromberg parodied in anything. It's kind of, well, okay, it's incredibly stupid that he converts to good for the love of his life in Moonraker, but it does give him the distinction of surviving 2 whole Bond films as a villain's henchman, and that's an indisputable record, and hey, he's another henchman with his own TV adverts, and that, again, counts for something.
Well, here's to us.
Number 2. There's no doubt about it, the 2 best things in A View to a Kill are Zorin and Mayday. They are some of the best villains the series has offered, and proof that even the weakest Bond films have good things in them. I can't imagine what reaction at the time was like to news that Grace Jones was being cast in a Bond film. I guess it'd be akin to Lady Gaga being cast in a Daniel Craig Bond film. Hey, we've already had Madonna, I wouldn't put it past this series. But yes, aside from that one scene, you know the one, which should never have been filmed or even conceived of, Grace Jones is actually an incredibly effective henchwoman, and one that's actually pretty good at her job, too. She's incredibly loyal to Zorin and at times appears to risk her life for his will, but she's not going to sacrifice herself for his goals at all, and when she becomes one of the few hench people to turn to Bond's side, it is really effective and makes a lot of sense. Her dramatic death is certainly one of the film's highlights and probably one of my own personal favourite moments in any Bond film. It's a fine exit for a fine character. Number 1.
There's almost no point in even trying to do another James Bond femme fatale because Xenia on a top exists and no one can ever come close to beating her.
Or topping her, even. Played by Famke Janssen, this character is insane, completely and totally mental. She kills men during sex by squeezing the breath out of them with her thighs. Can you get crazier than that? And she's fit. She's so fit. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's one of my favourite things in my favourite Bond film. I've heard a lot of people compare her to Fatima Blush from Never Say Never Again, and while there are certainly similarities, I don't really rate Fatima as much as Xenia. Xenia is just everything a fun Bond villain / hench person should be. She's a riot to watch, and she's certainly endured a large amount of popularity over the years, and frequently appears on Bond games and such as playable characters in multiplayer and all that. And by the way, the rebooted version of Xenia that appears in GoldenEye Reloaded, not a patch on Famke. When my only criticism of something is that we don't see enough of it, then it certainly accounts for a lot of love, and is why Xenia Onatop is my number one Bond villain's henchman, henchwoman, hench person.
She always did enjoy a good squeeze.
And so there we go. As always, I'd be very interested to know what you people have to say about this particular subject, what your top 10 lists are. It's always fabulous to get a dialogue going in the comment section below, or indeed on my Facebook page, which you can find a link to below. So please follow me on there, and let's keep the discussion going. Let's keep the on-a-top puns flowing as well. But for now, so long.